Hello there guys, and welcome to another one of my reviews. Today, as you can already tell, we are going to test drive the brand new Kia EV6. Why is this car important? And I think it's really important because the Hyundai Kia group has pushed the boundaries of what can be done within a limited budget for the last 20 years or so. They have made great strides forward. They have been pushing everyone else in the industry to get their stuff together, and everybody has been waiting to see what they will bring out now that the electric era is commencing. So they've been doing some electric cars so far, but they've been doing electric cars based on the platforms used for cars with internal combustion engines. So it's not really the same thing. As I said in many reviews, there's a dual approach to the electric car phenomenon in the industry right now. One that's using that's making electric cars based on internal combustion engine platforms, and one that is developing these platforms from the ground up for electric cars alone. So while Hyundai and Kia have been offering electric cars built on platforms for internal combustion engines, they have also been developing this global modular platform for electric cars that is now being rolled out. And it's being rolled out on two new models, the Kia EV6 and the Hyundai Ioniq 5. Both of those cars use the same platform and they are very similar. Today we're going to talk about the EV6, and in the near future we will get the Ioniq 5 for a review as well. So please make sure you subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified whenever that review pops up. So, in terms of design, you can obviously tell that this is a Kia, first of all, and that this is a car built on a modular electric platform developed from the ground up. How can you tell that? By the positioning of the wheels. So, if you look at this car from the sides, you'll notice that the wheels are very close to the extremities of the car. That's possible because of this modular electric platform. What that does is improve the handling of the car and offers you a lot of wheelbase. This car has a total length of nearly 4.7 meters, and the wheelbase is 2.9 meters. That means you get roughly the same wheelbase as in an E-Class or a 5 Series or an Audi A6. So it's a deceivingly large car. When I first saw it in pictures, I thought this was more along the lines of a hatchback. And from what I've seen online, many people thought that. But this is closer to a SUV than a hatchback. It's not really there, but I think it would be perfect to describe it as a crossover. So getting back to the design side of things, the front end is clearly a Kia. It has been blocked out in every single place you can look, except for the grille on the lower side of the front bumper that's there for cooling the batteries under the floor. Other than that, everything has been blocked out to make this car as aerodynamic as possible. The headlights are brilliant, they look good. The LED DRLs look good, and all cars come fitted with LEDs headlamps. The top of the range models, like this GT line version, come with matrix LED headlamps. Of course, the standard equipment will vary depending on the market you're in. But most countries will get very well-equipped cars, even in lower spec trims. From the sides, you will notice that this car is very long and very compact, I should say. The greenhouse is rather small, and that's surprising. They could have made it a bit taller for more room, but I'm guessing if they did, this car would have been less aerodynamic. So I'm guessing that this shape of the car is due to the aerodynamics of the thing. Now, you will notice the 20-inch rims and the winter tires, and I'm mentioning them because they are important when it comes to electric cars. They're important because the bigger the wheel, the worse the tires, the less range you're gonna get. So on 19-inch wheels, this car is rated for a range of about 530 kilometers with a full charge. I'm gonna talk about the energy consumption and the range later on in the review. But this 20-inch set of wheels will definitely have an impact on the range, as will the winter tires. I like the fact that the entire car is very clean in terms of design. You don't have a lot of shapes. You have these flush door handles that will also help out with the range of the car. And it's interesting that when you lock the car, they fold right in. And when you unlock it, they simply open. I also like the fact that the doors almost entirely cover the door sill, so you won't really get your trousers dirty whenever the weather is bad. Around the back, you'll notice the spoiler over here up top that has been optimized so that any kind of water that is that adheres to the rear window will be spread out. You don't really need a rear wiper. That's a smart move. I also like the fact that they extend to the sides just a little bit, and you have a LED strip over here that really creates a powerful impact at night. Around the back, the shape is rather simple. It does remind me of the Aston Martin DBX. It looks quite similar. You have an LED stoplight going from side to side, and you have a port for the charger. Also, if you open the boot, you'll notice that the opening is rather wide, the floor is flush, and you get up to 520 liters of boot space if you get the standard audio system. If you get the Meridian audio system, you get 490 liters of space. Not that you would actually notice that difference. Inside the cabin, we are met with a rather new interior. Some elements will feel familiar, but most of it is brand new. We have a mixed bag of materials. The top layer of materials feels really good to the touch, like the materials used on the dashboard. The plastic on the doors, on the top side of the doors, is rather soft to the touch. The leather is good. On this particular tester, we have the Alcantara seats with white stitching on them, and it looks and feels really nice. The armrest feels really good to the touch, and most of it on the top side of the car feels good. But once you get below this point right here, the material quality starts to go down. We have rather rough plastic on the lower side of the cabin, but you know what, that's fine, because you will have to, if you're using this car on a longer term, these plastics on the lower side of the car are actually necessary because they withstand usage and heavy usage a lot better. Now, the center console is a floating concept. We've seen this in a number of cars. And we also have a huge storage area right here under the armrest. We have two cup holders, a wireless charging station over here for your phone. That is actually cooled in order to keep your phone charging for a longer time. What I can complain about on the center console, though, is the fact that we have a lot of glossy plastic, piano black plastic, if you will, that will attract a lot of fingerprints and a lot of dust. Luckily, there's not a lot of this piano black trim inside, so that's good, I guess. I do like the fact that I have this EV button highlighted over here that actually starts the car. This is the rotary gear selector, and it's actually quite nice. And over here on top, we have buttons for various functions of the car, for the heating and the cooling in the seats, and the heated steering wheel. One of the smartest things inside this cabin is the fact that we have this panel over here that can actually change what it displays. So right now it's in HVAC mode. Basically, it allows you to set the temperature inside the car and everything related to the climate control. But if you press this button over here, you switch it to a multimedia control panel, and that's actually really, really nice. I love this approach because it's smart. It uses the space to its fullest potential, and it's easy to use. And the fact that you have these rotary dials over here that actually change function is really impressive. Right above it, we have the infotainment system, which is rather easy to use. It's familiar. We've seen it on the Sorento and other newer generation Kia models, but it does have a sub-menu for the electric model. Basically, in this EV menu, you get to see just how much battery charge you have left in your car, the range you can get out of it, and how long it will take to recharge it, depending on the kind of charger you're using. So a lot of useful information. The instrument cluster is also very familiar. It's digital, and the center part of it has the familiar usable info other models are showing, but to the sides we have a different design for the speedometer and one for the charge, for the power levels, if you want to. It does change appearance depending on the drive mode you select. So we have Eco, Normal and Sport mode, and it will change appearance, and it looks really good. The animations are free-flowing and there's nothing to complain about. The steering wheel is really nice too. It has only 2 spokes and it's flat at the bottom, so it feels really nice. Now, if we were to talk about my criticisms on the interior side of things, that would be the space, the room, the headroom, because I'm not a very tall guy. I'm 6 feet tall and I'm about 250 pounds. But as you can see, I am touching the headliner rather easily if I am to stand tall. And the seat is in the lowest position possible. Also, you have a button over here that will fold the seat backwards for your charging sessions if you want to take a nap. Fortunately, I didn't have to because the car has a very fast charging potential, and I'm going to talk about that later on. So this is basically my only complaint, and it's rather surprising. If you're interested in buying one of these cars, I suggest you go try it out for yourself to see just how you fit behind the wheel and if you have enough headroom. In the back seat of the EV6, one cannot complain about knee room. There is just so much of it. And there is a lot of space inside. We have no transmission tunnel over here, so the floor is completely flat. So bravo Kia. Now, there is an issue, however, and I mentioned it on the outside of the car when I was talking about the greenhouse. As you can see, the window is rather small and the roof is rather low. So that means you don't have a lot of headroom in the back. Now, I'm 6 feet tall and about 250 pounds. And as you can see, if I stand tall, I have about 1 finger left until I reach the headliner. So that's like, I don't know, 2 centimeters. But that's because I have my seat in the most backwards position, because you can adjust the seat backs in this car. So if I would adjust it like this, for example, that headroom would be drastically altered. So there isn't a lot of headroom, but there is a lot of legroom over here in the back. And I guess it will depend on how your body is conformed, your body's conformation. So if you want to buy one of these cars and you're going to spend a lot of time in the back, I suggest you get yourself into one of these before you make up your mind to see if you have enough room. We do have a armrest over here. That's normal. We also have a lot of creature comforts, like, for example, heated seats. The seats are dressed up in all this nice leather as well, and there's really not a lot I can complain of. And you have a 220 volt power socket right here under the seat. That's going to work wonders if you want to connect anything to it, from an Xbox to an espresso machine, for example. Now that we're behind the wheel of the Kia EV6, let's talk about the technical specs. So depending on the market you're in, the range of motors and batteries and drivetrains will vary. But overall, there are rear-wheel drive versions of the EV6 available and all-wheel drive versions. And there are 2 battery sizes available, and you can combine them depending on the market you're in different ways. So, the cheapest and least powerful version will have a rear-wheel drive setup with a single electric motor on the rear axle, developing 170 horsepower and using a 58 kilowatt-hour battery. That 58 kilowatt-hour battery is the smallest you can get. You can get a 77.4 kilowatt-hour battery as well. And you can also get a rear-wheel drive version with 228 horsepower and 350 Newton meters of torque. That's the one we are driving right now. This is the rear-wheel drive long-range model because it has the bigger battery and a more powerful rear engine. You can also get an all-wheel drive version that has 2 electric motors, one on the front axle, one in the back, for a combined power output of 225 horsepower. That can be fitted with a 58 kilowatt-hour battery or a 77 kilowatt-hour battery, depending on the market you're in. There will also be a Kia EV6 GT model that will have close to 600 horsepower. It will be all-wheel drive and it's going to be a blast. I'm pretty sure about that. Can't wait to drive it. Now, the one we're driving, the long-range rear-wheel drive model, has an estimated range of 528 kilometers on the WLTP testing cycle. That's mighty impressive, but the values I got weren't exactly the same as Kia claims. Now, I should mention that when it comes to electric cars, the exterior temperature plays a very important role in the range you're gonna get out of your batteries. Furthermore, our car is not fitted with the standard 19-inch wheels, but with winter tires. So that's gonna take away some more of the range. Studies have shown that cold weather will affect the batteries up to 30% on average. So take away 30% of 500 kilometers and you're gonna end up with about 350 kilometers of range. And that's exactly what I got. I did a in-depth range test, as I always do with my electric cars. I'm gonna drop a link right over here so you can check it out and see for yourself what kind of figures I got. In short, 350 kilometers around town, 450 on B roads, and 300 kilometers on the highway. And I've done it all without cutting any creature comforts, without cutting anything in terms of comfort inside the car. I didn't use eco mode, nothing of the sort. Is it good enough? I think it is. It's quite unlucky that I got my hands on this car right now when it's really cold around here. But it is what it is. You can't really predict the weather. You can't really predict when you're gonna get your hands on a certain car and so on. In terms of performance, Kia says that the EV6 long-range rear-wheel drive should do 100 kilometers an hour in 7.3 seconds. And it feels decent in terms of acceleration. It's not neck-breaking as some other electric cars have gotten us used to, but it's more than decent for most trips. And even on the highway, you will keep accelerating up to 180 kilometers an hour, which is the top speed of the car rather easily. And you won't have any issues in overtaking at all. If you need all-wheel drive, you could go for the all-wheel drive version, which is a tiny bit faster because of better grip. Now, let's talk about the handling for a moment. This car actually took me by surprise. Now, when researching for it, I learned that even though it shares the platform with the Ioniq 5, the EV6 has been from the get-go developed to be a sportier choice compared to its Hyundai brother. So it has stiffer anti-roll bars, it has stiffer dampers, and actually it shows because this is a very capable car. I was surprised by how well it handles. It keeps its composure rather well, even in tighter corners. It keeps its weight in check rather well, and it has plenty of grip on the front axle. The suspension is the one I like the most because in comfort mode, it's very supple and it soaks up the bumps pretty amazingly. It's very quiet as well. And considering we're riding on 20-inch wheels, it makes the ride very comfy. And I was actually surprised by that. But I was even more surprised that when I drove this car at the limit, it kept its composure extremely well, even on uneven surfaces and even over various cracks and bumps and pretty bad roads overall. So they did a great car setting up the dynamics in the EV6. It was, I honestly can say it was a surprise. And I think it's one of the better handling cars I drove in the last year because it's not overly heavy. I mean, it tips the scale at 2 tons, and for a car of this size, it's rather decent. It's lighter than most of its rivals, and on that list you'll find the Volkswagen ID4, the Ford Mustang Mach-E, the Skoda Enyaq, and so on. So it's lighter than most of its rivals, and that shows. And the ride is a lot more supple too. So bravo Kia for doing your work and doing your job at setting up this car brilliantly, I might say. So if you're not driving this car at the very edge, you're probably going to drive it around town a lot of the time. And driving it around town is rather easy. The regenerative brakes is very easy to modulate. You can use these pedals on the back of the steering wheel in order to adjust just how brutal that is. You do have one pedal driving, it's called I pedal, and the car will actually come to a complete stop if you use that mode, and it will regenerate a lot of energy. Furthermore, as I already said, the suspension soaks up the pretty bad quality of the roads inside most big cities around the world. Visibility is rather good up front and to the sides. It's pretty bad out the back and towards the C-pillars, but you do get a brilliant camera 360 camera system that will help out in tricky situations. It actually shows a 3D rendering of the car and its surroundings, and it's really easy to use. The car can park itself, and you can use the key to let it get in and out of certain parking spots that may be too narrow for you to get in or out. What about charging, some of you may ask? Well, the charging times will of course depend on the charging power or the kind of charger you're going to use. We have the usual. You can plug this car at home and use a regular socket. You can use a wall box at home to charge it at 11 kilowatts, at 22 kilowatts, and we're going to talk about the maximum charging power over here. So depending on the kind of battery you have, the maximum charging power will vary. The 58 kilowatt battery can take up to 180 kilowatts, while the 77 kilowatt hour battery can take it up to 230 kilowatts of power. So depending on the one you have, that the charging times will vary. This car uses an 800 volt platform architecture, whatever you want to call it. So that's of course going to help out, but it's not going to work miracles. Charging time is estimated to take about 20 minutes from 5% to 80% if you're using a charger over 200 kilowatts. So that's pretty fast. During my time with the car, I only had to charge it once for about 20 minutes because the battery was at about 40%, and in 20 minutes I got to 80% using a 75 kilowatt charger. So it's not going to be that big of a deal. It's a very fast charger, and in case you're going to spend more time inside your car charging, as I said, this seat has a button that allows you to recline all the way back so that you can take a nap while you do it. Quite nifty, but I'm hoping not a lot of people will end up sleeping in their cars trying to recharge them. So overall, what's the takeaway with the Kia EV6? Well, what I can tell you is that this is one of the better cars I drove this year overall. It is one of the best electric cars I've driven so far. It's a good product. It does have some issues, but they will be sorted over time. My biggest complaint about this car is headroom in the front and maybe in the back, but mostly in the front because I spent most of my time up front. But that's one of my issues because I'm rather tall and I have a rather high torso. But other than that, the suspension is brilliant, the range is more than decent, the speed is nice, it's not neck breaking, but it's plenty fast, so not a lot to complain of around here. Another complaint is the fact that right now the AC isn't working, heating isn't working, and I saw that there's a number of people reporting this issue online. Basically, it will automatically shut itself off and only feed cold air into the cabin from time to time. It's quite unusual. I don't know what's happening. According to Kia, it's a software issue that will be solved, and I tend to believe them because it's not a hardware issue. Basically, if you're stopping the car and let it cool off, or lock it and let it cool off for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then you unlock it and set off again, the heating will work. So it's obvious that something gets reset. It's a software problem, not a hardware problem, because if it was a hardware problem, then heating would not work at all. But it does work only from time to time. It's quite unusual. But I'm pretty sure it's going to get solved. I mean, this is a new car and some issues might pop up. It's nothing new in the industry. Other companies have had issues with it as well, from Volkswagen to Porsche and so on. Software updates will most likely fix this issue. And since those are my only 2 complaints about this car, that says quite a lot about it. It has a decent price tag. It's very much in line with most of its rivals, but it has a longer warranty, so it's a pretty good choice, as most Kia products are these days. That said, thank you for watching my review. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any more additional questions, don't be afraid to drop them in the comment section below. I'm more than happy to answer them when I get the chance. Until next time, don't forget to feed your passions. Ciao.